Students, families, counselors, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever it is in the world you are joining us. Thank you so much for joining StriveScan and Cachet's virtual college exploration program. These STEM days are in partnership with Cachet, which is the College Admissions Collaborative, highlighting engineering and technology. We have a great panel today, but before we begin, I want to highlight a few housekeeping items. First and foremost, you are encouraged to ask questions of your panelists via the Q&A button that you see on your screen. When you submit a question, it gets sent to all of our panelists, and they will work to answer the question during the session and at the conclusion of the session as well. If you have a question for a specific institution, please make sure to indicate that in your question. So rather than saying, what is your campus community like? Or how is your food? Say, hey, RPI, what is your campus community like? And how is your food? As a reminder, your camera and your microphone are turned off so the panelists cannot see or hear you, so any questions should be typed in through that Q&A button. This is one of 50 STEM presentations that we are offering through this evening, so we encourage you to check out strivescan.com/virtual/STEM to see all of the upcoming events. We are also recording all of these sessions. Each one of these institutions on this panel have already done their own individual institution session, and you can see a recording of that at strivescan.com/virtual/STEM. The same exact place you went to register, you can see the recording of each of these respective institutions. And finally, when you signed up today, you received a barcode. You do not need that barcode for this virtual event. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our panelists.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Zach. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session. We're really excited to be here with you today. So what we're going to do today, we are going to be talking about STEM, but STEM in combination with a lot of other disciplines, a lot of other just ways that you can uniquely combine your love of STEM with disciplines like the arts, humanities, maybe business. Maybe you're looking to combine, again, the love of the arts with STEM, you name it. We're going to chat about that today. So as Zach highlighted, just want to let you know, please feel free to shoot your questions into the question and answer box. As soon as that comes up for you, we'll not only be monitoring during the session, but we're also going to save time for a live Q&A at the end. So we'll be answering questions out loud. Hopefully we can get sort of a variety of answers from our panelists, but we will make sure to answer the questions that come through the box. So you can see the institutions that are represented here today to be speaking on STEM plus X, whatever that other variable is for you. I'm going to go ahead and have our panelists introduce themselves before we get into the meat of the session today. I will start us off, and then panelists will just go in the order that we have ourselves listed here on this slide. So my name is Hannah Geyer. I work for Carnegie Mellon University's Office of Admission. We are a medium-sized research institution located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So it's afternoon for me here today. I'm really pleased to be here with you all.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Williams from Lafayette College. Lafayette is also in Pennsylvania. We're located in Easton, which is roughly equidistant between New York City and Philadelphia, about an hour and a half to each. We are a small liberal arts and engineering school with about 2,700 students.
Hi everyone, my name is Maureen Ruiz-Sundstrom. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I work at Harvey Mudd College. We're on the other side of the country. We're in Claremont, California. We're part of the Claremont Colleges. We're a small institution, about 900 students that focuses on math, science, engineering, and computer science.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex Pizzola. I am here from RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, as some of you may know it. Small, medium-sized STEM and research institution located in Troy, New York.
And I'm Bob McCullough, Dean of Admission at Case Western Reserve University, a mid-sized research-intensive university in the rock and roll city of Cleveland, Ohio.
Love it. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. And thanks panelists for your time today as well. We're going to go ahead and get started. Don't be alarmed. You'll see us popping in and out of the screen so that you can focus on the speaker. But we will all be here to present information throughout our time. So I'm going to throw this to Bob.
All right. Thank you so much, Anna. So we thought we'd kind of go through a little bit of kind of different parts of thinking through this idea of STEM plus X, and kind of what are some of the different factors and different things that go into helping you to imagine what your experience and what your life might be like at an institution like one of ours, pursuing a STEM intensive kind of curriculum alongside maybe some other things that may interest you. And so, we thought we'd kind of start just talking about what happens before you get to college to really make sure that you have the right foundation in place to lead to success as you encounter the STEM kind of intensive world. So first of all, bears kind of saying that important to make sure that you have a very strong foundation in math and science. That might seem really, really obvious, but it's one of those pieces of the puzzle that you just got to have in place. And so one of the things that we see, and I've been working in admissions for more than a few years, for students who want to pursue this kind of pathway, to make sure that they've had an opportunity to get that foundation, especially in the core science areas. High schools may offer a wide array of different curricular choices. You may find things like an astronomy course in your high school, or a geological sciences course in your high school, or various other kinds of things that you could do. But really want to encourage you to make sure that you've got those basics. You've got chemistry, you've got biology, you've got physics kind of in hand before you start to branch out into some of these other areas, which most of us kind of on the college side would sort of see as maybe less strong or less rigorous as a preparation that you might pursue. Really want to make sure that you are challenging yourself and recognizing that there may be AP offerings, for example, that may not necessarily be the best preparation for you. So really to kind of think about, do you have that foundation in some of the kind of core areas, and just being able to take, let's say you took pre-calculus and you have an opportunity to take AP statistics in your senior year versus honors calculus. The calculus course might be you might be better served by taking that, even though the other course might be considered kind of an AP sort of thing. Really to make sure that, again, you've got that good foundation there. But that's not to say that you should just kind of forget about all those other areas or all those other subjects. Being able to continue to challenge yourself in courses like English and social studies, languages, and even the arts are really important subjects, because those are courses too that are going to help you to develop yourself more fully. There are courses where you're going to build your communication skills, problem solving, being able to think creatively, and really as a STEM person, but also as a STEM plus person. Those are the kinds of things that are going to really lead you to great success. So don't neglect those other areas that are really important to you, not only because they're going to help you professionally, but because there's also life beyond just the job that you have. And some of these courses and areas might be things that you develop interests in beyond kind of your professional world. So we can go to the next slide. Beyond the classroom, another place to really kind of think about preparation. Yes, absolutely. Just like the math and science courses, to think about really kind of getting your STEM on. So that might be participating in things like robotics, or if there's research opportunities to pursue, or volunteering in a hospital if you're kind of interested in sort of the STEM field. But also, again, think broadly about other things that you might become engaged with. Those might be things like the arts, which, you may have an interest in the arts, you may not have any interest. It might be something that seems a little scary to you. But think about something like the arts as you could find a gateway. You could find yourself involved in something like doing design or tech work that really kind of ties into your STEM orientation, but then opens up a whole new world. So sorry, that was a little bit of an Aladdin reference. And it was indeed intentional. These are places where in athletics, there's a lot of physics in athletics, but also these are places where you can develop teamwork, understand what it's like to be a part of a team. These are things that you're going to use as a STEM person and beyond when you hit college. Thinking about service as a way to not only give back to your community, but also to frame some of the problems that you might want to tackle and wrestle with as a college student and beyond. And being able to be involved in cultural activities that are things that are not just about reinforcing maybe an identity or an interest that you have, but things that help you to kind of see different perspectives and different angles and really train you to kind of think in things in terms that are maybe not as standard. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to try things. That's what so many of our STEM folks do. They try things, they fail, they learn from failure, they fail better the next time. So really kind of think about beyond the classroom as a time to be able to do that. And we can go to the next slide. And finally, just thinking a lot about kind of what this looks like. These are things that not only are going to make you a more compelling candidate for admission at places like ours, but they also lead you to opportunities really to have a full experience. And you'll hear a little bit about ways that each of our institutions and others as well are able to kind of pair a very strong, rigorous academic program that isn't limiting, along with other opportunities to kind of engage in a rich college experience. Why does this matter? Not only do you develop all these important skills, but you also develop a richer life. Again, there is a world beyond the work world that you have, and being able to kind of develop some of these interests and some of these talents are going to lead you into some really interesting places professionally as well as personally. So with that, I think Maureen is up next from Harvey Mudd, and I will pass the pipette on to her.
Absolutely. So if you know that you want to study STEM in college, but you're also the kind of student that loves their history class or their English class, you're still able to continue to explore these other non-STEM disciplines in college as part of your like academic plan of study. So what I'm going to do over the next couple of minutes is give you some examples and some ideas as to how colleges and institutions give you the chance to do this. And I'm going to actually bring in some specific examples at our 5 institutions. Just know that in no way, right, is this an exhaustive or comprehensive list. So one way of studying non-STEM subjects in college is, of course, by majoring in them. So you may be familiar with this idea, right? But a college major is the discipline or field in which you're going to focus while you are pursuing your degree. So you'll take most or many of your courses in this one specific area, the area that you're majoring in. So a good number of colleges will actually give you a chance to do a double major, or they might even call it a dual major like they do at RPI. Our 5 institutions actually give you the chance to do that, to do a double major, to work on a single bachelor's degree, but to kind of focus on 2 different areas. Something that might be kind of fun is if the college or university that you end up attending has some special partnerships with other schools where you can take colleges across campus lines. You may be in this really interesting situation where your second major will actually be completed at a different school and not the one that you're actually enrolled in. So that's something that you'll also see in some places. Many colleges will also offer joint majors. So the difference between a joint major and a double major is that rather than working on 2 separate majors, you actually study these fields together and really explore those connections. So for example, Lafayette has a joint major in mathematics and economics that is a really good fit for students that are interested in applied mathematics and seeing mathematics in the real world, in particular in seeing how applied mathematics connects to principles of economics. A good number of schools also will give you a chance to create your own major. At Harvey Mudd, we call that an individual program of study. A good number of the institutions in this panel use a much more descriptive name. For example, at Lafayette, they just call them a self-designed major, which is a lot more clear if you run into that term on the website than our name for it. So if you're designing your own major, right, you could potentially choose to do something that is combining your STEM interests with your non-STEM interests. If you know that you want to study something outside of STEM, right, maybe in the humanities, social sciences, and the arts while in college, but you don't want to do a full second major, perhaps because it's too many classes, or perhaps because it's not really a big part of the culture of the college that you're attending, many schools will give you a chance to do a minor. So minors tend to be optional, meaning that you don't need to complete a minor in order to graduate at most institutions. And they tend to be smaller, like a smaller collection of courses than a major. So usually at most colleges, I think a minor will be completed with 5 or 6 courses in one specific field or discipline. Most of our 5 colleges offer minors as an opportunity, but I'm actually going to use Case Western as an example. So they have close to 80 minors available. And over half of those will focus exclusively in humanities, social sciences, and the arts, or will explore these topics in connection to some more technical fields. Beyond your major, a good number of colleges will actually have other graduation requirements that you have to complete. A lot of colleges will ask you to explore a range of courses outside of your major. We might call these core requirements or general education requirements, and the structure of these can look very different from one to the next. So for example, at RPI, they have their humanities, arts, and social sciences core, through which you get to take 6 courses somewhere in the humanities, arts, or social sciences. You would take 2 within the humanities and 2 courses within the social sciences. You get a bit of breadth of study. And you will have to take at least 2 courses in one specific discipline. So for example, 2 psychology courses or 2 economics courses. You get a little bit kind of like depth in one specific field. In addition to requirements that you have to complete for graduation, many colleges will actually give you a chance to have elective courses. So these are courses that are not required that you get to take just for funsies, right? So you get to decide when you're going to take them and in what areas. So they can be a really great way for studying things outside of potentially your STEM major, or it can be a really great way of exploring and discovering a new interest that you have outside of STEM. The last thing that I'll talk about is actually a term that you might run into as you're exploring college websites. You might run into the term interdisciplinary program. So interdisciplinary programs usually allow you to combine or study like the intersection of traditional academic disciplines, and specifically really dig deep into the new ideas and new research that's coming out of that intersection, that interface. Depending on the college, an interdisciplinary program might be a major, it might be a minor, or it might be just another kind of coordinated program of study. So for example, the Bachelor's of Computer Science and Arts at Carnegie Mellon actually exposes you to both the College of Fine Arts and the School of Computer Science. And it's a really good fit for students that are interested in fields that combine technology and arts. So for example, if you're interested in game design or computer animation, recording technology, robotic art, etc. In similar fashion, their Bachelor's of Science and Arts is also a really good fit for students that are interested in the fine arts, as well as potentially something in the natural sciences or mathematics, and that want to study these things simultaneously. The last example I'll give is at Harvey Mudd. We have an emphasis in environmental analysis, which is an interdisciplinary program that's not really a major or a minor. It's just kind of like an add-on to whatever else that is that you're studying. And it really combines technical courses with kind of pressing social issues or engagement in pressing social issues by asking you to take at least 2 courses in STEM and at least 2 in the humanities, social sciences, and the arts, with a focus on sustainability or the environment. So those are some of the ways that you can explore that X variable within the college classroom. And now I'm gonna pass it to Alex, who will tell you a little bit about exploring that X variable outside of the classroom.
Thanks so much, Maureen. Okay, so I'm Alex here from RPI, and I want to talk a little bit about the experience outside of the classroom, because at college, when it comes to cultivating STEM interests, there are so many things that you can do that don't even really involve your actual curricular experience. So whether you're looking to pursue a full degree in STEM or your passions lie elsewhere, and maybe you're thinking of it as a minor and having something in the humanities as a major, wherever the case may be, there are so many options for you. The first and likely most obvious way to cultivate your STEM interest outside of the classroom is usually through extracurricular activities. So all of our campuses are home to a large number, and I cannot stress that enough, a very large number of clubs and activities where students are invited to freely pursue their interests in various areas regardless of their major. So most clubs and activities on college campuses don't have a major requirement. You can just go pursue something because you're interested in it, kind of like the clubs and activities that you do in high school. This is really great for a number of reasons. You can expose yourself to a wide array of STEM-oriented activities, and you can also combine many interests with other things that you care about. So similar to what others have been saying, we really encourage you to think broadly when it comes to what you're doing on your college campus outside of the classroom. STEM-focused clubs on our campuses include things like robotics clubs, automotive, aviation, medical clubs, STEM ambassador groups where you go to local high schools and work with the young students there, service clubs with kind of an engineering twist, and so much more. But it's also really great to seek outside of your STEM major, joining clubs like ballroom dancing, or maybe a religious organization or something like that. There are so many different options. And the more you broaden your focus, I think you'll find the more comprehensive of an experience you'll get. There are also a number of professional organizations available at many of our universities. Really intended to help you build not only knowledge in STEM, but also a strong professional network in your field. So these are really great if you're looking to enhance a STEM major, and sometimes do require you actually majoring in that area. Not always though. If you're thinking of majoring in it, there's likely a professional society for it, whether that's something like the American Nuclear Society or the National Honor Society in biology. A number of students also combine STEM and identity through professional organizations like the National Society of Black Engineers and the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. Another really great way to embrace STEM is through tutoring. And I think someone else is going to talk about this later. But if you're a person who likes and is good at STEM subjects, I'm sure you're aware that not everyone feels that way. So whether you're looking for opportunities on your campus through a tutoring center, or whether you're looking to tutor younger students in K through 12, tutoring is a great way to help others, but also deepen your understanding of the really foundational elements of STEM, which will only help you in the long run, especially when you get into those higher level STEM classes if you're studying STEM subjects. And then the last thing on this slide is living and learning communities. It's really important to know that a lot of us actually offer opportunities to cultivate a really specific area of interest while living in community with others who share that interest. On many campuses, these can be called special interest housing or living and learning communities, and they're a really great way to dedicate a lot of intentional time to something outside of your major. Usually they can vary by year and by interest, so sometimes there will be social justice groups that have kind of like a unique housing situation, maybe a sustainable living group, a musical group, sometimes STEM oriented, but regardless of what it is, what I find with special interest housing is it really allows you, again, to intentionally get into a subject while also not being in the classroom. So bringing your own kind of twist to it. Next slide, please. Other STEM-related resources on our campus worth checking out include makerspaces. So some of you may be aware, but if not, makerspaces are places where your imagination can really run wild. They're stocked with all different types of things like MakerBots, 3D printers, and other machinery and materials that you can use to bring the ideas in your head to life. Makerspaces are really good for cultivating your interests outside of the classroom because they're typically free thinking spaces where you, as the creator, dictate what you build and how you build it. All of our campuses, all of the people who are presenting in this session, all of our campuses offer some type of makerspace with a variety of materials and machines to support your creative process, along with like-minded faculty, staff, and students who are looking to build and create with or alongside you. Next slide, please. And the last thing I want to touch on is research. So many people think of research as a predominantly lab science related idea, especially in high school when if you have access to research, it's typically lab science based. In reality though, research employs the scientific method and occurs in all different types of fields, including the social sciences, humanities, business, and more. There are so many different areas of research in which you can apply your love for STEM in super non-traditional ways, but where a background in STEM can actually be really helpful. So on college campuses, you'll find many students naturally fall into doing research within their major. But there are plenty of opportunities to get involved with research outside of that. And doing so is really great for gaining professional experience and also embracing all of your interests. Some recent non-STEM focused but super exciting research on our campuses include things like at Carnegie Mellon, where students and faculty are analyzing the influence of social networks on decision-making during crises and disasters. And that does include COVID-19. At Lafayette, where a senior student is exploring the impacts of water pollution through art exhibition. at Harvey Mudd, where a team of researchers is using animation and creating educational video games to explore and also to explain social rules and norms across cultures. At Case Western, where students and faculty are studying together the impacts of childhood lead poisoning on future disparities in adulthood. And right on my own campus at RPI, where students are actually learning to speak Mandarin through virtual reality and gaming. So while none of these topics are strictly STEM oriented by any stretch of the imagination, the scientific method is, and problem solving will always be, multidisciplinary. And with that, I want to turn it over to Hannah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. And thanks. This is a wonderful just amount of information, and I'm learning a lot here. This is great. Thank you. So we're going to continue the conversation, exploring how STEM interacts with our communities and the impact that STEM is having on those communities, and where you all as students sort of fit into that piece. So all of our institutions around the world, frankly, are located in different neighborhoods and different cities and different areas of the country and of the world. And the community of people who live around that institution and around that university, sometimes they're working for the university, sometimes their students are in daycare or are learning at a school associated with the institution or the university. Our institutions invariably have impact on our communities, and especially you as STEM students or students with a STEM interest are going to be a really vital sort of unable to be untied from having that impact on the community. If you look around, STEM is involved in the technology that we're using every day. It's involved in the cars that we drive. It's involved in traffic lights. It's involved in how we think about how communities are laid out, how different communities are accessing different parts of water technology or electricity in their neighborhoods. You name it, STEM impacts all different parts of the community and the communities that we live in and that your neighbors live in. So I'm going to highlight pretty broadly a couple of ways that you can be involved in your community while you're in college, while you're in high school, even post-college. All of these different ways are going to work together, and you being able to use your skill set and the area that you're passionate about to work with others, to work with your neighbors, to work with other community members, sharing that love of STEM and that enjoyment of this field. So a couple, the first ways that I'm thinking about community impact is through being involved through community education. So oftentimes libraries are a big source of community information and teaching and providing resources for community members who might not be able to find those otherwise. A lot of times there will be classes on how to use computers, how to use word processors, how to use a website like LinkedIn in order to build a resume and start a job search process. Libraries are a huge piece of how community members learn to use different parts of technology. STEM students have a really great opportunity to get involved by volunteering at a library. You're volunteering not only maybe to teach those classes, maybe you're volunteering in a capacity to help the library run their computing system, how they organize their books and what they're looking at in terms of how they're managing intake, the intake of books and then like the release as people borrow books. Maybe you're volunteering in that capacity. Maybe in a nursing home, you're going in and volunteering and teaching older people in our community how to use their cell phones so that they can connect with loved ones. Maybe you're teaching them how to use Zoom, as we all have learned recently, in order to be face-to-face and have conversations with loved ones, or to connect even with each other. There are lots of great opportunities for you to share and teach that passion for STEM that you have around your community. There are also lots of tutoring opportunities, as Alex, really set the stage for us in terms of tutoring, in your college, in your college academic area or major. There are also opportunities to tutor younger students. So students who are really excited about STEM, maybe they're in elementary school, maybe they're in middle school, and they see themselves maybe reflected in you as an older student, someone who's pursuing their love of STEM, at the college level. you're providing not only a great resource in helping someone with their math homework or their science homework, but you're also setting almost a mentorship example, connecting with a younger student, sort of, again, bringing that, pulling the train of just engaging in STEM in those disciplines and sharing that love of STEM with a next generation. There are also school assemblies that students can get involved in, and oftentimes this can be something that a college club or extracurricular activity group will be connected with in their community, going to local elementary schools or middle schools to do a cool science experiment, to show off their Formula One race car that they built. There are lots of cool ways, again, to share that love of STEM, and again, giving back to the community, sharing that love with the next generation by providing, sort of a neat or sort of hands-on experiment time for students in a local school. Finally, there are lots of summer camps. Students, not only younger students who are going to camp maybe for non-STEM opportunities, but are going to get the chance to maybe build a bridge or work on some cool, like outdoor project that's going to require them to think about engineering principles and balance in the physics of being, in the outdoors. Maybe it's something like rock climbing, but also camps that are focused on STEM solely, and students go to these camps for a week to understand higher level math or science principles, and again, get to do some cool hands-on experimenting with STEM. These camps, again, students can volunteer at them. They open up that pipeline, giving students the opportunity and the access to see this is how STEM is interacting in the real world, and it's coming, again, straight to them in their community. We also see a lot of involvement in STEM in current community issues. So a huge example right now is obviously the pandemic that we're in the middle of. COVID-19 has really changed, the field and how we're thinking about the CDC and how different institutions, medical schools, hospitals, research groups are working and thinking about the vaccine. STEM students are all over those front lines of COVID-19, from the doctors and nurses to the researchers, to our state and local and federal governments. All levels are engaging with STEM to understand the COVID-19 pandemic, to understand the vaccine and how we're developing out that vaccine, and understanding best and safe practices as well. An institution, one of our institutions is creating an app to contact trace. One of our institutions is working on developments, how to count and sort of understand the data for different states. All those institutions, university levels, again, hospitals that are related to institutions are involved and on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic. Finally, community problem solving. This is a little bit broader of a topic, but understanding what are issues facing the community and how is STEM helping to solve those. So from things like hackathons who are promoting a shift or a change for maybe something in the medical or health field. Maybe there is a hackathon relating to solving a problem in social justice. There's technology involved in voting and census counting that our communities are dealing with every day as well, that STEM folks are looking to work on. Finally, things like traffic patterns, building a bridge in a community, understanding how people use public transportation from point A to point B and how we're tracking that information. All involved in STEM and technology. And again, your love of STEM combined with that love for community is a really neat way, not only in college, but beyond, to sort of put that passion out there and to make an impact in your community. So with that being said, I'm gonna hand this over to Kathleen to sort of drive us home. And then, we will save time for questions at the end. Thanks, Kathleen.
Thank you, Hannah. Next slide, please. We are running a little bit behind, so know that if we don't get to your questions, we will definitely answer them. So why this X factor? What does it bring to you as a STEM student? STEM is often, some memorization, but really when you combine the social sciences and arts with STEM, then you are better able to understand problems, not just to understand solutions. Soft skills that you get from other non-STEM type exposure, whether that's through your activities or through your academics, help you with such things as communication, observation, empathy, and logical thinking. And those are things that really do help prepare you for the future, whether that's directly going into the workplace or going to grad school. Next slide, please. So for example, medical schools actually look at humanities students, and these schools, those are the percentage of students who applied to medical school who had a humanities background. So if you are a STEM student thinking that you want to go to medical school, it really might behoove you to double major or major minor, or in some instances get dual degrees, because you can see that, for example, at UC Irvine, 36% of those students being accepted to medical school are not STEM majors. So when you can combine STEM with whatever that X factor is, it's only going to enhance your chances of getting into medical school. The other fun fact to know is English is actually the 7th most popular major for those going to medical school. So next slide, please. Studies have also shown that an exposure to the humanities makes you a better doctor. So a study was conducted across 5 medical schools, and those studies showed that students who had a background in the humanities were more empathetic. They had a tolerance for ambiguity. They had an emotional intelligence. So those kinds of factors are really important for you to have if you decide to go into a field like medicine. Next slide, please. What about law school? Well, you know, law school is a whole different animal, right? Because if you notice, math and science are numbers 9 and 10 for applying to law school. And most students who apply to law school are going to have a background in the social sciences or the humanities. But what sets you apart as a STEM student, if you decide to go to law school, is that STEM degree. In fact, you are going to be highly sought after and have a huge advantage in going to law school. So also, the only folks who can become patent attorneys are those who have a degree in engineering or the sciences. So if you have any desire to combine your love of law and your love of STEM, you might do that through being a patent lawyer. Next slide, please. You know, right now, these are some careers that probably did not exist 10 or so years ago. And right now, you are in a world where you don't know what your career will be. It may be that it doesn't exist at all. So it is absolutely imperative that you have those soft skills of communication, empathy, problem solving, that you really can get through the X factor of exposing yourself to more than just STEM. Next slide, please. So, you know, Mark Cuban, he's made a lot of money, as I'm sure you likely know, will tell you, you know, don't go to school for finance. The liberal arts is the future. Now, you know, that means you as a STEM student, you want to combine your STEM with some liberal arts because it gives you the ability to pivot. And so rather than being just an individual contributor, such as being an engineer, really having that X factor, whatever it is for you, allows you to be a manager, a leader, an entrepreneur. Next slide, please. So what does the X factor get you in terms of outcomes? Well, studies have shown that those students who are siloed just in math or STEM or just in the social sciences and humanities do not make as much as those who have the combination of both. Again, it's those soft skills that help propel you and get you career success in terms of monetary payment. So job satisfaction tends to be the same between humanities and STEM students. You know, and this is on the X factor. So one size does not fit all. I mean, different companies use different majors to do interesting things, like Uber uses psychology majors to find out why riders are unhappy, and OpenTable uses English majors to do data work. So just know that the combination of STEM and the X factor makes you, you know, more marketable, certainly more attractive to graduate schools. Next slide, please. We are now at the question session, and we are kicking it back to Hannah to handle that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you to all our panelists for your insights today. So I am going to go ahead and throw some of our questions to our presenters. I'm having some trouble pulling up the Q&A box, so I'm wondering if someone else might be willing to ask questions to our panelists right now. Thank you.
Definitely. Okay, so this is a good one. One student is asking, I'm currently starting the IB and I haven't and will not take physics in high school. Is this a problem? Should I take it at community college before applying to college? Maureen, do you want to take this one?
Absolutely. So I think that will be a question that I think you need to ask the specific colleges on your list, because we might have different application or enrollment requirements. That's actually a very good question for us. At MUD, we do have not an application requirement, but an enrollment requirement that all students arrive at MUD having had taken calculus, chemistry, and physics, like a year's worth of like high school for each of those subjects. So while we still admit some students conditionally if they haven't taken that course, it's not super common, but that's very much specific to us. For other institutions, there will be no requirement specific to that. Or there may be a requirement if you're looking in particular to like the engineering school or something like that. So just make sure you ask other schools in your list about that.
Great, thank you. Yeah, definitely ask us because everyone's going to have a different requirement or need. Oh, this is a good one. What, in our opinion, is the most underrated STEM major or majors? And I want to toss that to Bob, I think.
Great. Well, I'll throw out, I think one of the things that a lot of times people hear about STEM and they become attracted to some of the more popular fields like computer science, or sometimes something like biomedical engineering. And I kind of think in some ways a really interesting STEM field is to go old school and to think about something like materials. Materials science is really cool. It gets into all kinds of groovy stuff related to, they used to call it metallurgy. It's one of the kind of like just really foundational, and that also was a little bit of a pun, kind of core engineering STEM-y kinds of fields. Gets into a lot of chemistry, gets into a lot of kind of stuff that's extremely hands-on and very tactical in nature. So I would encourage you to think about something like materials. It's a very cool field.
Awesome. I love that answer. All right. How can one pursue more than one passion or major in life without them tripping over each other or being too much to handle? Kathleen, could you take this one?
Sure. So it's going to depend on the school, but certainly, for example, at Lafayette, we have double majors, major minors, and dual degrees, BA and BS. Some schools, some of your classes will count for different buckets, right? So you'll take one class, but it will fulfill your requirement in engineering, but it will also fulfill a requirement in economics. So there's just so many ways to kind of double dip to make it work. It takes planning. Also, if you're bringing AP or IB classes to us, that's also very helpful for making this work for you. Also, the earlier you start and plan with all things, you can't do this junior year, right? You need to start planning as early as your first year. That's absolutely possible.
Great, thank you. And then Hannah, can you talk a little bit about the benefits of combining STEM with business or finance? Because we didn't really discuss specifically that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So more and more, as I'm sure, many of you who might be the adults or the counselors or a family member in the room understand that STEM and technology is more and more a part of more traditional fields, I guess I would call them, like business or finance. Students who understand that combination between sort of the business models or financial models that businesses are using, understanding that from a STEM perspective, understanding the math and the analysis that goes into those documents, understanding the technology and the computers that we're using to make business decisions. I think a lot of our institutions probably talk about making data-driven decisions, understanding what the numbers are telling us in order to make an informed, robust, and holistic decision that is maybe the best for, let's say, a marketing company or a marketing business, understanding who's in the room, what the numbers are telling us, and therefore what that decision is going to be. Understanding how to run programming for computers as well is going to be super important. Again, technology intersects with all aspects of our life. That is an unavoidable fact. And so the fact that you understand STEM and have that base, have that knowledge, is only going to benefit you as you head into maybe a non-STEM field, I'll call it, because you have both of those areas sort of in conjunction to work with together.
Awesome, thanks. And it is 1:45, which means I think we need to say our goodbyes. So I see we're being taken over by Zach. Thank you all so much. Thanks to our panelists, and thank you students for joining us for yet another Zoom session.
Thank you so much to all of you for sharing this information. And students and counselors, thank you for joining us. As you close this window, a very quick 4-question survey will appear, so we do ask for your feedback. And you can see individual information sessions from each of these institutions at strivescan.com/virtual/STEM, the same place that you went to register for this event. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.